Okay, so hello, good day everyone. This is Madam Trisha Inventor. So today in this video, I am going to discuss or give a short explanation about our second module in 21st century literature. So again, my name is Trisha Inventor. If you have questions or you want to contact me, you can contact me through this number, or you can also chat me on Facebook. Okay, so let's start. So in here, our subject matter for the second module is poetry from the archipelago. This is our content standard. You'll be able to understand and appreciate the elements and contexts of 21st century Philippine lit from the regions, and then these are your most essential learning competencies or your objectives. So just read it, and then to represent representative texts and authors from each region, and then compare and contrast the various 21st century genres. Okay, and then first part of our module is explore, in which this is all about the discussion. So as you can see, there's no more activity in the explore. It's purely discussion. Okay, it's purely discussion. So that it will be easy for your part. Okay, so first, let's start by talking about poetry, explaining what poetry means. So I know that you guys already have an idea what is poetry. When you say poetry, it's the most strict in form type of literary genre. Poems, kana siya mo na siya example sa poetry. So that is probably the most sophisticated of all literary genres. Your Filipino ancestors through oral tradition shared epics, proverbs, riddles, and folk songs in poetic form. So kadalasan, usually when we see this these literary pieces, they are in the usual narrative form, but some of our Filipino ancestors made their work in a poetic form, meaning in a form that is the same with poems. So I know you already saw what is the itsura or the appearance of a poem. Okay, it's different from the short stories and novels that you have read. So with specific formal scheme in which they strictly followed. So in poetry, it's specific and it's strict. It has a lot of elements compared to just a simple short story or a novel. So poetry is still the chosen genre of many local writers, for it offers a uniqueness that other genres may not achieve. So this uniqueness that we are talking to here is the opportunity to see the world anew with every single written word. Okay, so why do we say that it's the opportunity to see the world anew? Because again, the most usual thing that we read is, the narrative poem. The narrative type, like in paragraphs. So, in poetry, it's just short. It's specific, but it still gives you the opportunity to see the world. Okay, so it's like somewhat new to us. So just it gives us that opportunity with just every single written word. Okay, it doesn't need, like, in poetry, it doesn't need a lot of words. It doesn't need many paragraphs for you to see the world. So poetry is just, kumbaga poetry, maliit lang siya tignan, but it's very deep in meaning. Okay. So here we have Philippine poetry, its form, language, and speech. So in here, we have poetry in the Philippines is not different from its other counterparts around the world. In the early 1900s, Filipino poetry celebrated romanticism and several poems about love flourished. So when we say romanticism, these are poems that, oh, sorry, these are poems that romanticism talks about, um, you know, poems that has deep emotions in it, has very it's is very sentimental to read. So usually when the poem is like that, it usually talks about love. So but the romanticism, just remember that it has so much emotions in it, so much sentiments, and usually it's about love. So here we have here the formalist. Formalist is the emphasis of poetry is more on the form and language that the poet used. Okay, ang mga formalist, um, their their work is more on the form and the language, meaning the how the poem look, unsa unsa siya pagporma, what are the languages used in the poem. So it's focused on that rather than the theme or the message itself. So kumbaga ang romanticism or mga romanticist ang tawag sa tao, poets nga hilig og romanticism. Kumbaga ang mga romanticists, they are more focused on the theme or the emotions that they put on in their poems. Muna sila, but the formalist, they are more on the technicalities in a poem, so such as the form and its language. So modern poetry sprouted, and nowadays writers are more adventurous in their craft. So right now we talk about the elements of poetry. So first we have here the senses and images. So when we say senses and images, it talks about the words used by writers to describe their impressions of their topic, object of writers in their poems cannot be found the words that they use to carefully describe something. Okay, words or phrases that they use to create an imagery that the reader can see through his or her senses. Kana bitaw makatandog sa imagination, sa gabasa, and makatouch sa senses sa nagbasa, sa reader. Okay. So it talks about our senses. So these kinds of sense impressions in poetry was recognized in mainly the following. So again, as you all know, we have 5 senses. So first is the visual imagery, what the writer wants the readers to see. So unsa iyang gustong makita sa mga readers, uh, the writer will describe that using words that are very that creates imagery. Olfactory, when we talk about olfactory, it talks about the sense of smell. Mm. Another one, the gustatory, it talks about the sense of taste. And then our tactile, our sense of touch or our sense to feel. Okay, another thing, and the last one is the auditory or our sense of hearing. So, I can say personally for me when the poet is able to use words that has senses and images is that's very, what do you call this? That is very effective for me as a reader, because I get the chance to to imagine the things and put myself on that in that situation. Okay, so it's nice that if or when the author uses senses and imagery, especially when these five are complete. Okay, so my example on that, for example, the water in Boracay Island is very refreshing, that when it touches my skin, I feel like I am I am a newborn baby that took a bath for the first time. O, diba, mga ganun. And then, that ice cream tastes like heaven, that the sweetness, um, the sweetness invades my tongue for about 2 hours. Okay, whatever, like something like that. Like you can really imagine what Boracay looks like, what that ice cream looks like. Though I am not a poet, and I am not good in expressing that. But those were just an example. Okay, next element element of poetry is the diction. Okay, so when we talk about diction, this is about why these certain words were used or were chosen by that poet. Nganong kaniman nga mga words. So, poets use words and phrases because of they have dili na basta-basta nga kana ang word ang gigamit. It's because it has a meaning, a deep meaning that the poet thought of that very well. So, Filipino writers are very careful of the way they write and the words they use to form their poems. So, dictions again is the denotative and connotative meaning of the words in a sentence. So, when we say denotative, okay, let's talk about denotative and connotative first. When we say denotative, these are the meanings coming from the dictionary. Okay, these are the dictionary meaning. Mo na siya denotative. Like for example, when we say, when we say snake. Okay, snake in the dictionary means it's an animal that crawls, that when it bites you, it may poison you. O mo na siya. It's snake is an animal, crawling animal. That is the denotative or the dictionary meaning of snake. Meanwhile, connotative is the meaning of a word is what the society made. Okay, meaning society made meaning. For example, mingan ta og snake. Pag sinabing ahas, ang ibig sabihin ay traidor or kaya kabit. Diba? Something ana. So, mo na siya connotative meaning sa snake. Okay, mga ganon. Meanings that the society made or us human beings made. Okay. All right. So, again, diction is to make this definition short is the careful chosen words of used in a poem. So, ngano kana nga mga words ang used. So that is the diction. Okay. Next is the rhyme scheme. So is the way the author arranges words, meters, lines, and stanzas to create a coherent sound when the poem is read out loud. Okay, so when we say rhyme scheme, talks about the sound when the poem is read out loud. Like the last, kumbaga, the last, what do we call this? The last syllable or the last sound in a line sa poem are the same or sounds like or pare-pareha og mga sound that is rhyme scheme, like for example, twinkle twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are. So si si star and si R pare-pareha sila og sound, no? So napoy sometimes there are rhyme schemes na ang first and ang third line ang pareha og sound. And then ang second ug ang fourth line ang parehas og sound. Like for example, this one. Roses are red, violets are blue. Okay, first line, roses are red. Second line, violets are blue. Third line, I'm out of my head. Fourth line, with thinking of you. So si first line and si third line ang parehas, si red and si head. And then second and fourth ang parehas, si blue and si you. So that is a rhyme scheme, the sound at the end of each line. Okay. It may be formal or informal depending on the way the poem was written by the poet. Okay, so fourth is the speaker. So speaker in the poem is the voice. Okay, to make this short, speaker is, kumbaga, sa story pa na siya ang point of view. Okay, kung kinsa tong narrate, kinsa ang gastorya sa poem. Okay, remember, take note that the speaker is not necessarily the poet. So, di ba, atong hunahuna, si Jose Rizal ang gasulat ani nga poem. So, si Jose Rizal sad ang speaker. No, not all the time, because some poets make poems na nasa usahay sila ang persona sa poem, usahay po they use other characters to be the speaker of the poem. Okay, the poet may have a different persona in mind while writing the poem and may not have taken the situations in the poem from his or her life experiences. So again, some poets are the poems that they create are inspired by coming from his or her life experiences, but some naman are not coming from his or her life experiences. It may be just produced by their imagination or their creativity. Okay, next is the structure. So when we say the structure, this is the forma the form of the poem. No, it includes the stanzas, the words, the lines used. So kumbaga siya na tong overall siya ng overall, kumbaga siya ang overall or ang general element sa tanan. So, um, these talks about the two words and lines, refers to the interdependent parts. Okay. Ano ni siya, interdependent parts of it are organized to form a whole poem. When we say interdependent parts, muna to siyang elements. No? The rhyme scheme, the diction, the speaker, the theme. Okay? Muna sila ang mga interdependent parts of a poem. So, muna siya si structure. So, si structure na tong, kumaga ang whole, ang general. Okay. Next one, the word order. Okay. Word order are the words used in a poem, whether it's either natural or the unnatural arrangement of words. Oops. When we say natural or the unnatural arrangement, they are when we say natural, they are the usual formation of words used, the usual grammar that we know. Unnatural, sa isa ka unnatural nga sentence, there may be words nga gigamit nga dili usual sa atoa. For example, kabantay mo when sa isa ka sentence na ay murag giapil nga Bisaya nga word or Tagalog na word nga naka quotation mark or i naka italicize like this one. Okay? Muna sila yung mga unnatural arrangement of words. So a poet may use a word grammatically or not, often called as poetic license. Muna poetic license are kumbaga the right of an author to invent words or to form a sentence in an unnatural way. So, muna siyang poetic license. So, kumaga, he has the authority because it's his work, it's his poem. So, naa siya authority to invent new words, padira. Okay? Usually, poets that uses this type of word order, muna sila, Filipino writers uses local words to add more locality to given poem. So many local words like Tagalog words, Bisaya words, Ilonggo, Ilocano words, nga gi-insert sa isa ka English sentence na kadalasan ay nakaganito, naka-italicize, and sometimes also naka-quotation mark, something ing ana kabantay mo mga ing anag porma, English siya, English, English, and then na ay word nga ing ani. Okay, nga naka-italicize or naka-quotation mark. So, mo na siyang example, ana, and then if the Filipino word also does not have a direct English translation, kana siya, when poets only use poetic license or only use local words in their work when walay direct English translation ang words or ang local word. Okay? Then the poet may use the Filipino word and italicize it for emphasis. Like for example, I will make an example. This is an example. Moringa, or sometimes it's called malunggay. Lunggay is a healthy leafy vegetable. Okay, so sometimes pala it's like that. Okay, now here is the kumbaga scientific, or I don't know if it's scientific, the scientific name of malunggay or the English translation of malunggay. Sometimes, di ba, yung animan, bisag na anay English translation, ginabutangan gihapon og local word. That is because para mailhan. So, kita kailaman jud ta sa malunggay. Pero, si malunggay is common to us, but si moringa is not. So, malunggay needs to be, what do you call this? Kinanglan niya muuban with moringa so that we can identify kung kinsa si moringa. So, mo ni siya example, ana, kanang mga naka-italicize or mga naka-quotation mark. So, that's it. And the next one, actually, Filipino poetry is not part of the elements of poetry. So, gibutang lang naman siya dira. So, just remember, just to clarify. So, Filipino poetry, although greatly influenced by the previous colonizers of the country, stands on its own when it comes to its unique elements. So, mono to siya. Sometimes our unique way, poets' unique way are by using local words, by using our words here in the Philippines. So there is a certain voice that Filipino poetry offers, one which a fellow Filipino like you can relate to. So, especially when you apply this in real life situations. So, mas maayo man, mas catchy man jud ang poem when we can relate to, di ba masayon man sabton ang Tagalog poems kesa sa English poems. Because Tagalog poems are made by Filipinos, Filipinos like you, which you can relate to. But there are also Filipino poems nga laglum kaayog words, so it's kind of hard to understand. Okay, next we talk about the close reading of Filipino poetry. First, we have here the organic unity. So I'll just summarize this definition here. Just read it for you, but I will summarize it for you. Okay, when we talk about organic poetry, it talks about a poem is comprised of interdependent parts. Mura siya katong structure ganina. So, kinahanglan nato ang interdependent parts para mabuo to create one whole. So, kumbaga sa ato ang lawas pa ni, atong body is not called a body without our internal organs like our heart, our liver, kidneys, or kaya our bodies our bodies cannot be called a whole body without the upper body or without the lower body. So kinahanglan siya og interdependent parts para mabuo ang one whole. Parehas sa sasakyanan, it has to have interdependent parts like the wheels, the manubela, okay, the steering wheel to form a whole or to form a car. So in poetry as well, we need interdependent parts to form one poem. Okay, kinahanglan siya og elements niya. Like kato dictions, rhymes, word order, iyang speaker structure, iyahang theme, senses, and images. Because if kulangan og isa, oh, if one part or aspect went missing, the literary selection cannot be complete. So meaning may kulang talaga. Sumala god ka ng mga poems nga walay rhyme scheme, di ba? Matawag magyapon nga poem kung maski walay rhyme scheme kanang dili siya pareho og sound sa end part. So matawag gyapon siya poem but it's kulang and it's lahi ra gyud tong naay rhyme scheme. Okay. So that is organic unity. Next is close reading. This is very self-explanatory. The way you analyze a poem by reading it and then rereading it again so that you can understand and then search the words in the dictionary or in Google for you to interpret a poem. Context. This is the setting, why it was written, when it was written, para kay kinsa, ang poem, okay, for us to understand. Mao nang we study the background of the author because sometimes ilahang poems are taken or are inspired by their real life experiences. So that is the context. Next, the elements may find visual clues to its meaning through its rhyming scheme, overall structure, words, amon siyang elements katong na-discuss nato ganina. So, you may also try to identify who the persona is and who the persona is dedicating the poem to. Kinsa ang persona o para kay kinsa ang poem. So, part na siya sa element. Okay, so that's all for our discussion. I hope you learned something. Now let's proceed to the activity. Okay, I'll just clarify. As here we have the firm up. You are going to write your own summer limerick. So, um, in this one, when we say limerick, mura siya og poem. It's a poem, but it's not long. It's just a short one that we are asking here. It's like a poem, okay? So, kani siya nga limerick, make it rhyme. Okay, rhyme. Dapat naa siya rhyme scheme. Okay, ang element nga tong gamiton dire is the rhyme scheme. When we say rhyme, pare-pareha og sound, especially the last words. Okay? So make sure to have a rhyme and then fill in the words here. Think of a noun. There was a or an. Tapos think of a noun from, in, a noun na pod. Okay? Think about, the topic is about your summer. Okay, kamo na bahala, summer nga 2020 ba or katong last year, because summer 2020 is lockdown, so we're just at home, so might as well use your summer 2019 if you can still remember that. Okay, now here again, this is a poem. Limerick is somewhat a mini poem, a short poem that has, it talks about your experience. So in here, you think of a noun, here a noun, here na naman a noun, and then here it's a noun. Okay, it has guides here under the underline. So just think. All you have to do is to think a word and make sure that it has a rhyme. Okay? Okay. Okay. Now, in here in this box, after you are done with your limerick, okay, kung unsa man gani imong nabuo diri sa imong limerick, imagine that and then draw that here in the box. Okay? Okay. Mao nay purpose sa box. Again, kinahanglan sa ninyo tiwason ning diri sa taas. And then imagine this, and then you draw that here in the box provided. Okay. Now, third one is our Dpen. So as you can see, we have here a Venn diagram. This is used for you to compare and contrast. Okay, compare and contrast the two poems. Unsa man nga poem? This one. Okay, kaning na ubos sa Venn diagram. Is it the Kingfisher? And also how to find silence in the world. So kani silang duha ay inyo sa ni pong basahon ang poem. And then compare and contrast the two poem by citing 5 similarities. Asa man ibutang similarities? Dire sa center. Okay, dire siya sa center, 5 kabuok similarities or pagkapareha. And then also 5 differences in each poem. So 5 here, and then 5 pod here. Okay, these are differences and then similarities here. So this is for 15 points. You can compare them through a sentence or just a word. Okay, basta it's 15 points. Okay, so this is the poem. Just read it and understand it. Next one is the transfer. Okay, so in our transfer, as you can see, we have here the grasps. So first, our goal here is you are tasked to impersonate a prominent Filipino poet. So example of Filipino poets are Francisco Balagtas and Pedro Bucaneg. Okay. Sunon ninyo, mamili mong Filipino poet and then inyong sunon. Okay? Wala ko gaingon nga si Francisco Balagtas o si Pedro Bucaneg ra inyong sunon. Okay? think or search of lain pa nga Filipino poet. But if you like this two, pwede sad, pero di mo ganahan na nila, then search for another Filipino poet. And then choose a poem of that poet and then impersonate that poet. Imagine, for example, akong gipili si Francisco Balagtas. So I will imagine that I am Francisco Balagtas. Then I will search a poem made by Francisco Balagtas. And then sunon ako si Francisco Balagtas. Imagine na ako giunsa niya pag-ingon sa una. Okay? And then I will recite the poem. Okay, now your role is you're a famous classic poet whose goal is to inspire the youth. Your audience is of course me and your classmates because you are going to record that sa inyong pag-recite sa poem. Okay, inyuhan na siyang i-record. Again, you will produce the 3 to 5 minute clip impersonating a famous poet. So, inyo na siyang isend sa group chat nato. Okay, group chat, not PM. So, group chat. And then, situation is the national or the NCCA task you to tour the different regions in the Philippines. So, as a patriotic artist, you will inspire the youth with your talent. So, again, what you're going to do is to choose a Filipino poet, search his or her poem. Again, Filipino poet man gyud ni siya. So, okay ra og Tagalog iyahang poem. Basta kay siya'y gasulat. Tagalog, English, basta kay siya ang gasulat. Basta kay Pinoy ang poet. Okay? Basta Pinoy nga poet. Okay na siya. And then you are going to recite the poem and then record or video yourself while reciting the poem. Okay? Again, nato'y question if i-memorize pa ba or unsa ba, it's depende na sa inyong diskarte. It's up to you because again, you are going to video yourself. You're going to record that. So, pwede ra kayo magbutang mo camera dira na ikuan sa luyo. Kamo na'y bahala. But you can also memorize it. Much better kung i-memorize. And then this is the rubric. Please read naman the rubric that we prepared. Okay? Kay dili nang nana ang rubric sa module mga tana pag unsay basis sa grade ani among kuan madam. Naa na dira sa rubric. Okay, dire nako basihan inyong grades. So first is the mastery. Mastery doesn't mean nga gimemorize ninyo tanan iyang poem. No. In here as you can see is you can able to impersonate the prominent poet kanang masuon ninyo siya. Okay? Much better if you search for a video nga nag-recite og poem na nga poet. Pero if wala, then do your best to impersonate that poet. And then second one is the creativity. It's not necessary for you to wear an attire nga parehas sa ilahang na malit and everything. No, do not buy anymore. Use what you have there. It's okay nga dili gyud masuon ilahang attire as long as you look presentable in tawon. Dili nang naglingkod og nag unsa ba? Wa ko kasabot atong uban. So please naman. Please make it presentable like kana bitong you stand up and then just imagine nga naa mo sa classroom nag-recite og poem nga daghag naglantaw ninyo. So make yourself presentable and then please mind your gestures, your mannerisms must be related to the poem. I mean, yeah, dili nang daghan kay unnecessary movements. Next is the promptness. The output is submitted, okay, on or before the deadline. So our deadline for this video is during the day of your schedule in returning this module to your advisor. So for example, Thursday or Wednesday ninyo ni nakuha inyong module, then ang deadline sad sa video is on that same day, on Wednesday or Thursday next week. So you have 1 week to work on it, and then I know that you can do it. So do not be stressed out. Dili magsigigyaw-yaw sa social media because dili lang kamo ang gikapoy sa world, okay? Manage your time. Maura na siya ang key sa tanan. Walay raing rason. Time management. You don't have to rant on social media about your complaints. So, us teachers, we are trying our best to teach you in this new normal situation and also to make things easier for you. So, um, just manage your time so that you can answer everything in this module. So that's it. I hope you learned something today. So if you have questions, just message me, call me, or chat me on Messenger. Pero class, please naman hangyo lang. Ayaw po ng tungang gabi na manawag, okay? Maybe just until 7 p.m. I'm okay with that. I have a personal life at home. So your teachers have personal life also. So don't complain if dili dayon mo ma-replyan in the in the evening, because of course we have our families at home. We have to spend time with them and you as well. And in the morning, ayaw po mo complain if dili dahil mo ma-replyan because we have a lot of work at school. Dili lang, wala lang may gahimog module dira o ga-distribute. Daghan pa may gitrabaho. So please, let's help each other because we are all pioneers of this new normal situation. So no one is a master in this kind of situation kay parehatang nabaguhan tanan. So you just have to adjust and stop complaining and start working. So that's all. So again, just feel free to message me at a reasonable time. So that's all. I hope you learned something. Goodbye and have a great day.